For many people, you don't start thinking about your own death and mortality until it actually becomes a reality in your world, until you're sent to the emergency room for chest pain, or have been diagnosed with some serious illness, things like that. And, if we wait until something happens and then we're actually trying to sift through all of the stuff that comes along with it, it's just already hard enough dealing with a serious illness and then dealing with all the other crap that comes with it, the processing and all that other stuff, the planning and all that, just the logistics too. All of that just makes it so complicated and just so overwhelming than the serious illness itself. Hi, my name is Abigail. I'm here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we all die better at the end of life. Let's get into it today, why you need to have the talk now. So we need to have the talk now. And the talk is not the birds and the bees talk. I mean, we wish it was kind of that talk, right? No, we're talking about death and talking about dying. And I want to acknowledge and get that you don't maybe really want to talk about death and dying, especially if you're a person or you're not really dealing with any death and dying right now. I need to emphasize that especially if you're not dealing with any kind of health issues right now for yourself or for your loved one, this is the time to really have the talk. I mean, it's really the time to have the talk now. Don't wait. And of course, if you are dealing in a situation where you or your loved one has a serious illness or you're nearing end of life, this is still valuable for you as well, because this is your reality right now. But I want to talk to you about why you have the talk now and not wait until things happen. So just let's play with this scenario right now. You are at your 9 to 5 or whatever job that you are in the middle of the week, and you get a call from the hospital emergency room in your town, and you are being told by the nurse that's working very hard, I'm sure, on the other line, on the other side of the phone, that your parent, your mother, let's say, had a fall at her nursing facility, and they sent her to the emergency room, and you might have already missed a call from the nursing facility contacting you earlier saying this, but you were busy. Maybe you were on lunch break, or maybe you were dealing with something else work-related. So you pick up the phone, this person's calling from the emergency room, and whenever you get a call from the emergency room, you're like, oh, okay. You're already kind of like starting to have some reaction to it, right? Because emergency room is like emergency, crisis, oh my God. And something happened to mom. And maybe they're talking to you, maybe you're processing. Most likely you're not processing everything. And if you are processing most things, your body is still kind of going into a freeze mode or some kind of alert mode, because that's just naturally what the body's going to do. You're not doing anything bad. You're not bad at being zen. Your meditation isn't working. It has nothing to do with that. You're just having a normal reaction to the situation, okay? If you keep yourself nice and calm and cool, collected, great, but pay attention. It's natural for you to feel anxious and fear and, be afraid and really concerned at this time. If you weren't feeling that way, then we're dealing with another issue that's more complex. We're dealing with death and dying here. And having these emotions it's very healthy to have these emotions. It's very normal. And you're not bad. You haven't failed at something for having these emotions. So let's just clear that up. For some of you, you're like, okay, yeah, I got that, go on. But for some of you, other people need to hear that. So then you are trying to gather your stuff. You're trying to feel like, okay, I need to talk to people at work. I need to let them know I'm leaving. Oh, I have a meeting that's coming up. I need to reschedule that. I need to do all these things because I need to run to the emergency room because they're telling me I need to come to the emergency room because all these things are popping up and they're mentioning that we need to maybe send her back home on hospice because she can't do something. You're not even like processing it. So you're finally making it out the door or wherever you need to, you're leaving from, and you're getting in your car or you're getting into some car to go somewhere, and hopefully driving as safe as possible. And while you're going to this place, this emergency room, I apologize for this noise here. They're doing work on the street in Germany. Your mind is going to naturally start to catastrophize. This is a very normal, natural thing that your mind does, that your nervous system does in an attempt to prepare you and protect you for what's going to happen. So if you start catastrophizing and thinking, oh my God, this could happen, don't think you're manifesting it. You're just naturally responding to the situation. Your nervous system is just doing what it does. So know that that's normal. Okay? If you can, If it's getting really overwhelming, try to, obviously focus on your driving. If you're driving, focus on the steps that you're doing with driving the car in front of me. I'm making sure I stay at a safe distance. The red is turning yellow. Now it's turning red and I've stopped, all those things. If you're a passenger in the car and you're waiting, your tendency might be to go through social media. If that distracts you, fine, go ahead and do it. That's a good time to go and distract yourself if you need that. Or another thing to do to help ground yourself, if again, don't do this while driving, is to just start looking at your surroundings. Look at what you see out the window. There's a tree. Is there something that you can do your five senses thing? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I feel? What do I taste? You can do that. Or you can just play a game and say, spot 3 things that look red. Okay, do something like that. These are things to kind of help ground you, in your state of anxiety, nervousness, whatever you want to call it, and can help you just kind of get through this moment right now. Okay, we're not trying to process everything, figure out, everything that happened to you in childhood and all that kind of stuff and all the traumas that are coming up. You're just trying to deal with the moment at hand and take care of your internal system right now that is freaking out. Okay. Normal to freak out. It's okay to do these things and freak out and feel this way. These are things that you can just do just to help you through this moment, okay? Then when you get to the emergency room, after you've parked, if you found parking, or if somebody drops you off, you get there, then you have to find your way into the emergency room. Then you got to find your way to the desk. Then you have to explain to them, okay, I got a call from you guys. My mom is here. They might start asking about insurance information, blah, 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 and asking you all these questions. And then they might ask you to sit down. It may not be one of those cases where you're like, oh, okay, great. We'll bring you right back to your mom. It's not always like that. You're probably most likely spending some time in the emergency room where you're seated and maybe looking at other people who are waiting to get in there as well. At some point, you get let in. Now, if this was COVID, when I went to the emergency room and I was admitted to the hospital, my husband was never allowed in. I never had my husband with me. He literally dropped me off there. And I'm just thankful that I'm a nurse and I just know my way around a hospital and I know kind of what happens. I'm very lucky. But for people who don't know, it's scary. And then when you're talking about a person who is elderly, who's ill, has any form of cognitive conditions, that's going to just amp everything up for them in terms of their anxiety and fear and everything and discomfort. So, a pandemic, another outbreak, whatever, especially flu, things can happen again. And, emergency rooms even might have their own policy and might not allow certain family members in for whatever reason. So you have to just know that could happen. Hopefully you can get in and hopefully you can be at your mom's bedside and you may notice that she looks different. They may have her on some tubes. They might have some tubes attached to her through her nose or through her mouth. You don't know what's going on. She could have, if she fell and hit her face, she could have a big, swollen face, that's starting to turn different colors. She could be yelling. She could be crying. She could be grimacing. All these things could be happening. And, she could be writhing around in bed if she's anxious and uncomfortable and confused. All these things could be happening. And you're still trying to, again, we haven't even gotten to the part of when they say that they recommend hospice. Okay. We're just going through the scenario of what the crap a day is this, basically, right? So we're just doing that. And then, at some point the medical team comes and they maybe use some jargon. They're explaining things to you. You're not, maybe you're understanding it, maybe you're not. But they start saying that your mom has broken her hip. Usually in these cases, we do surgery, but because she has this, issue and this diagnosis, this condition, she's not a candidate for surgery. So now you could have surgery. You can decide to have surgery, but she may die in surgery, or, you can send her home on hospice. And you're like, okay, what does this mean? And then the hospice people are coming in, they're talking to you, but then they're telling you something funky about room and board, because she's in a nursing facility and you're trying to get that all straight. Oh my God, this is crazy. So I hope you got what I was trying to say there. I haven't said it yet. Well, I kind of said it, is you can't wait until the shit hits the fan and start spreading it all over the room, because then you're just really trying to play catch up. You need to have these conversations now, because as you saw in that moment, I don't know if you got the feeling, I was certainly feeling it, of how overwhelming it was, how scary it was and how just like, oh my God, the last thing I need today is to deal with this, because then I still got to figure out when to pick up the kids, or how to go and take care of my other loved one who's sick, or, I got to take care of myself. I have to go to chemotherapy at 4:00 in the afternoon. Way, 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 way too much. So you need to have the conversations now about how you want your medical care to look like. Do you have all your paperwork? Not just the regular will and testament, but the living revocable trust and all these other things, durable power of healthcare of attorney, all these other things. And not just have it all in paper, but also have you talked to your loved ones about what they want? Have you been able to talk to your mom about, should she have a fall and break her hip and, won't be able to tolerate certain things, what's the plan? Have you talked about like, this is when I want to bring hospice in. I want to bring in end of life care when I am, this week, at end of life. And, I'm going into a nursing home. So things can change people's trajectory once they get into a nursing home because they're ill, not necessarily because the nursing home is doing bad things. I know we've heard bad stories here and there, but things change. So you need to have these conversations now, because by the time you get into that situation that we just covered, you're not only dealing with the newness of a new diagnosis like a fracture and possible terminal illness, but you're dealing with all the other crap that goes with it in the middle of a day that you weren't planning on it, and in the middle of a week and a month and a year where you're just like, I wasn't planning on this stuff. And you have to deal with all this other emotional stuff that you may not think is a big deal right now. You're like, oh, I'll take care of that later. No. You have to be prepared for this. And I want to do a disclaimer here, you're never fully 100% prepared. That's impossible. I'm just trying to make you more prepared. You know how people say there's no such thing as safe sex, there's just safer sex? It's kind of the same thing. You're never going to be 100% prepared for this type of disaster stuff, death. You're never going to be 100% prepared, because it's impossible to be 100% prepared for all of those situations and the nuances and the circumstances. Impossible. I just want you to be more prepared. I want you to be better prepared, so that, things can happen better, things can happen more swiftly. Because in a situation like that, how it should go is maybe two things could happen. So mom's at the nursing home, she has a fall, she breaks her hip. One of two things can happen. They call you, you answer the phone, they say, your mom had a hip fracture, and, say she's been going downhill for a while. She hasn't been doing well. The doctor's you maybe have already talked to the doctor about hospice and how we want to bring that in at the right time. Then you can just say, you know what? I want to bring hospice in. I'll sign whatever you need to sign, but please don't send her out. I want to just bring hospice in and get her really comfortable and situated there and leave her alone. And not that you're not doing anything, but make sure she's really, really comfortable and not trouble her with an exhaustive, anxiety-provoking hospital visit to the emergency room. Because I already talked to my doctor for my mom. We already are aware that if she has a fall or has some other big traumatic incident, that she's not going to survive surgery. So we cover that. We're good. Let's get hospice in here. Please, put in a hospice referral, and let's get a hospice team here today. That could happen, and she could be admitted to hospice. You already understand what the financial ramifications are, if it's room and board, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, you've, at that point, skill days and things like that, medication have already been done, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing, okay? The other option is maybe, you didn't answer the phone the right time, but you've still had the conversations with the doctor. You've done all that kind of stuff with her. You've talked about it with her. Maybe she ends up going to the emergency room. Then you get the call from the emergency room, and they're starting to talk to you. And you can say, you know what? Yep, we've had this discussion. I hear you that she may not really survive surgery. So you know what? Let's go ahead and just bring hospice in now. And can you get them there this afternoon and have them transfer her back to the nursing home, and let's start hospice today? They're like, great. They're going to be more than happy to call hospice for you. What they do is they send out 1 million referrals to all the hospices in the area, and they can get someone there really quickly. And especially when you get those types of referrals to hospices, the hospice they're going to just jump at it, and they're going to respond really quickly, and they're going to be calling the hospital and saying, how soon can we get someone there? Or I have someone in the area. I actually have somebody there at the hospital already treating some other patient that's on inpatient hospice, blah, blah, blah. Let's get someone there, and let's get this person's mom back to their home, whether it's in a private home, nursing facility, whatever. Okay. So those things can happen. Now, I do have to say, because I always want you to be as prepared as possible. If you have a commercial insurance or if your loved one is in a skilled nursing facility, the payment things may be a little bit more
complicated, or I don't want to say complicated, but you just need to, kind of vet that out. So speaking to the hospital case manager can really help you. Speaking to the nursing facility case manager can help you. They can tell you if there's any other financial responsibility with that or not. So I want you to have these conversations now. I want you to get your paperwork together now. And really, especially if you're starting to deal with any kind of serious illness or things like that, then you talk to your providers as well. You have these talks. And, what I will do is I have 2 videos that may or not be posted right now that are called Goals of Care videos. Goals of Care Part 1, Goals of Care Part 2. That's kind of like how you kind of go through, what's important to you, how you actually tailor your medical decision-making around what's important to you and your goals of care, particularly at end of life. So those are important videos. I will link them here in the caption so that you have that and you can go to that. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if anything needs to be clarified, because this is for you. This is for your life and your death. Death is about life too. Okay. So this is really, really critical for you. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if I can clarify anything else for you. I'm Abigail. I'm here to normalize conversations and education about death and dying so we all die better at end of life. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for coming in.